Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our next episode of Soul Strings. Well, I felt, today, how do I actually introduce something which now I've been associated with? It feels as if I'm associated with this institution since ages now. It feels, trust me, as if this was, when I started my journey, Soul Strings was a part of it right at that point of time. So I felt, let me again put the ball in your court. Because even when we were contemplating about what should be the name of this platform, right, wouldn't even want to call it an entity, right, a lot of names had come our way. And somehow an alliteration like Soul Strings really struck us. And the best way to define that is by using more alliterations, right? So I just want to pick up few people in the audience, if everyone's comfortable, to just tell me whatever is the first word which comes to their mind from S. Since I feel Soul Strings is synonymous with S. Soul Strings, SS. It ends also in S, the last word, right? Begins with an S, ends with an S, has two words, both begin with an S. Okay, so let's quickly do this. Sujit, any word coming in your mind from S? Anything? Don't worry. Anything? Okay.
S as the name itself states soul.
No, don't nothing to do with it. I have put you in a spot. I'll pick the word spot from you. Okay? Okay, no worries. Anna, would you want to say any word that comes to your mind from S? If you can hear me. Sorry, you're on mute.
Okay, hi, I'm muted now. Hi everyone, good afternoon. I think there's really nice structure here. That's the first word I can give you. Really nice structure. So I like the structure and the feedback.
Lovely. Yep. Great. Thank you, Anna. Moving on to Kalagini, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Any word from S?
Yes, it's correct. Star.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. So we have structure, star, and spot. I'll wait for two more. Kirubai, would you want to give any word from S?
Searching.
Okay, lovely. And last, Sue, if you could tell me one word other than your name, which begins from S.
Superheroes. Because we each of us are our own superheroes.
Absolutely. Brilliant. So try and understand, I guess you all put some beautiful words, and I'm going to just do the job in a second to join them together. When we all are put in a spot, right, that time what we all are looking for is structure, because we just get lost, right? We just don't know what to do. And when we are looking for structure, right, at that point of time, I feel Soul Strings is the star, which is actually showing us that structure. And as we move ahead, right, once you actually get to see this factor, sorry, Kirubai, I missed your word again. I'm so sorry.
Searching.
Yes, absolutely. As we are searching for this direction, sorry, I'll add that word now. As we are searching for this direction, we found this star called as Soul Strings. And the main motto of Soul Strings, which is put beautifully by our guest today, is that all of us are superheroes. That's why I told you, you don't need me. Y'all are the definitions. Y'all are the best people to describe what brings you here week on week and what will bring you here for days to come. Moving on to somebody who actually took the initiative to actually get the ball rolling, somebody who's been behind all our backs throughout, somebody who keeps pushing us to give it even more, and frankly, somebody who I feel makes it relevant for all of us to be present here today. If not for you, I can guarantee you we wouldn't have been here. This platform wouldn't have been here. And that's none other than Dr. Menaca, our host for this evening. Dr. Menaca, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rohan, as ever, for your kind words. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Soul Strings, and lovely to have each and every one of you here. Today, it is my absolute honor and privilege to have Curr, who is my close friend, here to speak about transforming from alcoholism. She is a mental well-being mindset specialist, an NLP practitioner, an international award-winning speaker. I met Sue first time when I was in Delhi last April. and we were both co-speakers. And when I heard her speak and how aligned she is with everything what she says, I think it is Mahatma Gandhi who says, the happiness is what you say, what you think, and what you do are all aligned. And that's how I can sum up Sue. Over to you, Sue, if you want to tell us a few words about you, and then we'll crack on.
Okay. I live in the UK. I live in Yorkshire, which is the north of England in the UK. I'm happily married, been married for almost 43 years, I think. 3 children, 5 grandchildren. And this year in lockdown, I celebrated my biggest birthday thus far of turning 60 by being locked down. Did nowhere, did nothing, went nowhere, didn't do anything at all other than just be. And you know what? It actually turned out to be one of the best birthdays I ever had, because I had the time and space to be just with myself inside my own head, and realize that actually this whole situation, lockdown, can be perceived as a prison, or it can be perceived as freedom, where it really counts inside our own minds. So for me, I took that as a big advantage, and it pretty much sums up how I feel about life in this day and age, to be fair.
Thank you so much, Sue. It's lovely to have you.
Nice to be here.
So, thank you. In England, there are estimated 586,780 dependent drinkers.
Wow.
But only 18% are receiving treatment. It's an appalling figure as far as I can say.
Yeah.
So the journey you have had is quite a story in itself.
Yes.
Might be to enlighten all of us how things happen.
Okay.
For you, where did this all happen and begin, rather?
Firstly, from a very, very young age, I struggled with my own mental health. I'm Irish by descent on my father's side, and my grandmother used to call me melancholy. I now know that means miserable. But they just thought I was being melancholy, whatever their interpretation was. And so it's fair to say that I grew up with a long history of mental ill health. When I turned 18, my parents said to me, right, you're 18 now, you need to go get this sorted out, go and see your doctor. I was depressed, I was anxious, all that sort of stuff. So I went to see my doctor, my GP, and I was in there all of 5 minutes, and I came out with a prescription in my hand, with his words ringing in my ears, take 2 of these twice a day and you'll be as right as ninepence in 6 weeks. That man was a genius. He was an absolute genius. He was spot on. 6 weeks later, I was happy, I was upbeat, I was everything. What I didn't know was I was completely stoned, because I was 18 years old and he'd given me a prescription take 2 diazepam twice a day, every day for 6 weeks. Diazepam used to be called, can't think what it's called now, but at that time it was the biggest selling tranquilizer in the United States. They were eating it like Smarties. And whilst the drug did its trick in terms of it elevated my mood, what he forgot to say was, come back in 6 weeks and we'll wean you off it, if he even knew that at all. And in essence, what happened after 6 weeks of being really happy and upbeat, I crashed and burned. I thought I was going mad. I didn't realize that what I'd got was withdrawal symptoms, because nobody discussed that with me. And it triggered in me a lifelong distrust of medics and medication, to be fair. So as my mental ill health unraveled into my sort of 20s and 30s, it was a stop-start cycle. I would go to the doctor when I knew I really, really needed some help. Some more pills would be given. I'd take them. They would work for a little bit, and so on and so forth. And intermittently, I'd decide I didn't need the doctors and I didn't need the medication, so I'd have a drink. And that became a rinse and repeat cycle. And if we sort of took that from the age of 18 and fast forward it to the age of 52, so 8 years ago, I was literally a mess. The journey that had brought me that far to 8 years previous from here, saw me 7.5 stone heavier than I am now. So I was like a whole nother person in terms of size. And I've always been the same height, so you can imagine how wide I was. And at that time, I was taking 17 different prescriptions per day, totaling 44 different pills and potions for all manner of ailments, from high cholesterol to high blood pressure to Crohn's disease to everything. My body was falling apart because I was just not looking after myself. And then you add into the mix that an increasing dependency on alcohol from the years of 18 to 52. Had the first time I had a drink, incidentally, a legal drink. I was one of these people. I never broke the law. I waited until I turned 18 to have my first legal drink in a pub, and I had half a lager, a half pint glass of lager with a splash of lime in it, because that was the craze in 1978. You had your lager and lime. I very quickly ditched the lime because I was convinced it was giving me a headache. That was the first story I told myself. It was the lime, it was the additives in the lime, the E numbers, that was giving me the headache, not the lager. That first lager and lime I had made me feel really happy and really giddy. Fast forward to the age of 52, in order to get the same effect, minus the lime, that half of lager had escalated to 5 bottles of wine per day, every day, on top of all the pills and potions I was taking to try and put right the ailments that I was causing myself because of my poor lifestyle choices, the medication. I found out subsequently that 4 of the meds were toxic when prescribed together, and you factor in the alcohol on top, and I just couldn't see. I literally could not see a way out, and I went down a spiral and spiral and spiral. And I went to see my doctor again on the 26th of September 2012. So that was at 9:30 in the morning, and I very nearly didn't go, because at that point in time I was halfway down my second bottle of wine for the day already. Something inside me said, you've got to go. So I did. I went, I sat down in front of her. She took one look at me, picked up the telephone and said, I'm calling for an ambulance. And like a fool, I sort of went, who for? Me and her in the room. And I'm asking the question, who are you phoning? She clearly wasn't phoning one for herself. That's how much of a denial I was in. So she admitted me to hospital as an emergency, and I came round about 5 days later. My husband says I was never unconscious. I'm a very fortunate woman. I'm still married to the same man I married when I was 23, and we're still together now, despite what I've come to call my wilderness years. So I'm very fortunate. But he said I was never unconscious. I was just like in catatonic shock. In my mind, this meant that everybody on the planet would know me for who and what I was. Desperate, drunk, etc. In reality, they already did. And the people that knew me and loved me still do today. And I say I'm very fortunate. I spent 6 weeks in hospital, and I walked out of there, much to everybody's surprise, including my own, knowing that I probably wouldn't live 12 months if I had another drink again. And I celebrate 8 years sobriety on the 26th of September. So today, and I always check the dates, the actual number of days when I'm doing something like this. And today is my 2,915th day of sobriety, which sort of, to me, that's a great number, but actually it doesn't excite me until when I reach 2,000, when I reach 3,000, that's going to really excite me and stuff like that. But you know what? Every day now, regardless of what life throws at me, and it does, because I'm human, I'm like you all. I have good days and I have bad days, and I take myself off and I validate everything. But the difference is I don't unpack and stay there, and I definitely don't open a bottle of wine, because I know life. I know the value of life now, and I know that every day, even on its worst, is a blessing. It's been, like you say, it's been a hell of a journey.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sue, and a huge congratulations for being the sobriety for so long, and even a bigger congratulations for being authentic and speaking about it so openly. We need more of them coming out.
I actually don't know any other way to be these days, because that's what got me into trouble in the first place. The fact that I was hiding behind all the, part of my French, bullshit I was feeding myself. I believed the stories I told myself, and I pretended that everything was okay when it wasn't. And now I'll spend the rest of my life helping people to turn their stories into their truths, but for the right reasons.
Thank you, Sue. So 24% of adults in England and Scotland regularly drink over the chief medical officer's low risk guidelines. And an appalling 27% of us drink in Great Britain, binge drinking.
Yeah.
So I know you said you haven't touched a drink for past 8 years. How easy has it been for you?
I think, in all honesty, the day that I was admitted to hospital, I subsequently found out, I think I said that 24 hours later, if I hadn't gone that day, that little still voice inside would say, go, go, go. If I hadn't gone to my GP that day, 24 hours later, I would have been dead. My liver had failed. I was going. I was bright yellow, and I'd convinced myself I had a suntan. And I was so poorly when they finally sent me home. Still, I was out of trouble in terms of chemical dependency, and my liver had started to come round, as it were. I was so poorly when I went home that I didn't even feel like a drink. But I think what happened because they had to literally emergency detox me, and I have no conscious memory of that. So when I actually physically was aware of my surroundings again, the chemical dependency had gone. There wasn't the urge to sort of just reach for a drink. It wasn't there. But having said all that, I think I was just so poorly, physically and mentally, that I didn't have the energy to even think about it. And I went home, the day I went home with nothing else on my mind other than to stay alive. Because when I around about day 5 or 6, when I came round, my consultant came to see me and said, "You are a very sick young woman." And I laughed because I was 52 and he'd called me young. And I thanked him, and he said, "No, I'm not joking." He said, you have won the battle, but you have not won the war. You're still dying." And in that moment, literally in that split second, I said to him, "I don't have the time." And he said, "I don't understand what you mean." I said, "I don't have the time to do everything that I always said I was going to do. Jump out of an airplane, go to India. All the things I wanted to do, I'd never done because I'd talked myself out of it. But I vowed that if I got out of there, I didn't know if, how, or when I would, but if I did, my life would change for the better forever." That is what I've come to call my paradigm moment. You know, a paradigm moment, for anybody that's not aware, is the moment your world shifts on its axis and you know that no matter what happens, your world and your life will never be the same again. In that split second, I understood beyond measure, number one, how foolish I'd been, and number two, that intuitively I would make life better, not only for myself and my family, but somehow pay that forward. And on the days when it's been hard, because it has, I've held tight to that. I mean, the very early days, when I was discharged to home, my husband was basically told to take 3 weeks off work because nobody trusted me. Nobody trusted me not to have a drink. And I was like so ill, I didn't want any. But at times of stress, within 12 months, I lost my father, I had a cancer scare, all the things that would ordinarily have sent me running for a bottle didn't. So that paradigm shift, I believe, is responsible. That the deep-rooted emotional pain point in my brain that I'd had from a very early age had been replaced by an emotional pain point that was stronger. I wanted to survive. On the days when it's been hard, I have been a bit like a crazy woman in a soap opera. I grab my car keys and I drive off in the car and take my mic because I like to drive. But I've driven into the Peak District, which is like a country park near where I live, a national park, and I've driven into more country pubs in the Peak District than anybody's ever been in the one in Emmerdale Farm. And I slap my hand on the bar and I say to the man behind the bar, "Give me a minute, just give me a minute." And when I've calmed down, a Diet Coke without any ice. Don't put ice in my Coke. And these young men, numerous young bartenders have gone, "Mad woman." I think in the early days, I actually think now, retrospectively, I think I was testing myself. But I can honestly say that was, in the very, very early days, that was as close as I came. I don't eat food now if it's been cooked in alcohol. I'm a pain. If you want to go to a restaurant with me, I'm a real pain when it comes to choosing food. But I understand, it's not that I don't trust myself, but it's what I understand that it will do to my body and therefore rob me of my life, sure, but the impact that it had on my family. So on days when it's been stressful, that's my touchstone, if you like, is this day is a bonus and a blessing. And it's got something to teach me. What has it got to teach me? Because whatever it is normally about me. And sometimes I don't like what I find out, to be fair, but still I'll reach for my fizzy water, you know. But yeah.
Thank you so much. So, and you know, we all have to thank that consultant, because you are you know, the human being. We all need you, and the world needs you for the great job you're doing right now.
Bless you.
So thank you. So, you know, we all have that paradigm shift moment. I'm sure most of us in this platform will agree. We all have had it. I talk about my mental health issues, struggles, or burnout very openly, and the experience of war and migration. Every experience you go through does give you an opportunity to have that paradigm shift. I think it is on us. It is our responsibility to make sure that we shift in the right direction.
Yeah.
So, you know, we are almost in the fork junction, isn't it? We have to then choose which way we go.
Every day is a choice. Every day. People say to me all the time, the thing is, Sue, I can't make a choice. And I said, well, you have, yeah, my stock answer now is, well, you've just made a choice. I don't understand what you mean. You just told me you can't make a choice. So therefore you've decided, you've chosen not to make a choice. That in itself is a choice. So next excuse. The minute we open our eyes, every event, everything that happens in the day is a choice. Red dress, black dress. Make the bed, don't make the bed. Drive to work, walk. We're making choices all the time. We just don't realize, because we live on automatic pilot, and living on automatic pilot got me into a hell of a lot of trouble.
Thank you, Sue. It is so lovely to speak to you all the time. You know, you have so much of wisdom to share, and you may always make that fun. That's the bit I like about, you know, listening to you, speaking to you.
We're born to be joyful souls. We are born to be joyful souls. We make a career out of being miserable. And I made it such a career out of being miserable that I nearly died. And I'm like, you know what? I'd rather laugh now. If the world laughs with me, that's a bonus. If they don't, it's my party anyway.
Thank you, Sue. So, you know, the relapse of alcoholism, or people having that drink and going back into the alcoholism, it was really interesting to listen to you saying that you wouldn't even have food if there's alcohol in it.
Yeah.
So is it related to that, or you just made that conscious decision, is bad for the body and I'm just not even going to touch a drop of it?
I made a very definite choice. The first week that I was home, way back in 2012, I'm very fortunate that I've got a husband who is a superior cook to me, superior cook to anybody I know. So I don't have to worry about cooking, because he's awesome. And he said to me, give me a list of what things that you can have, because not only can I not have alcohol anymore, I can't have things like salt, because salt's very bad for your liver and your blood pressure, etc., and your kidneys. So there's a whole other list of things that I don't eat. I choose actively not to eat, knowingly. And after a couple of days, he said, are you going to give me that list? And I said, be easier to give you a list of what I can have rather than what I can't have. And we built it from there. But yeah, everything is doable, but we talk ourselves in and out of so much stuff that it's unbelievable. So I made an active choice very early on that I would, when I say I'm abstinent from alcohol, I will not knowingly eat anything if it's been within a country mile of a bottle of wine, for instance, or like very dessert. We once went out, a funny story, we went out for dinner quite early on within my recovery, and I'd forgotten that tiramisu was soaked in whatever spirit it's soaked in. I just my default setting at that time was, oh, I'll have a tiramisu, automatic pilot. It came, chat, husband sat across from me, I put it, he got the lot. Because I panicked. That was very early on in my recovery, and the instant it touched my taste buds, there was no politeness about me. I was just like, I need to get rid of this. I don't need to swallow this, because I panicked. So that was a bit of a wake-up call, insofar as I needed to. I then understood that I needed to probably be a bit kinder to myself, because one spoonful of tiramisu was not going to kill me, but it was also a life lesson, actually, how strongly I felt about not ever having any alcohol at all. And you know what? It's made, not only has it made a massive difference to my bank balance. I worked out, I'm nearly 8 years sober, but I worked out on my 5th soberversary how much money I'd saved in the last 5 years prior, in 5 years of my sobriety. Do you want to hazard a guess at how much that was?
Few thousands, I assume.
Yeah, it was not far shy of £50,000. I was spending £10,000 a year on alcohol alone. I was 7.5 stone heavier. I was fat. I was drunk. I was broke. And trust me, I'm no oil painting now. You know what I mean? But there was a time when I would have taken a picture of myself and put it in my front window to stop burglars from breaking in. You know, it's not a good sight. You know, for anybody that's seen my before and after pictures, you'll know what I mean. But
sure.
The conscious decision not to becomes so automatic that it actually replaces a negative habit with a positive one. And when we can sort of apply that to our lives across the board, my it just happened to have been alcohol. Everybody has an it. We all have a story we tell ourselves, and that's what I call our it. If your story, your it, is stopping you from being where you want to be, in my case alive, then you need to change your story. So yeah, it's sort of in my the very fabric of me now will not go near it at all.
Sure. Thank you, Sue. I have seen those before and after pictures many times, and
they're not good, are they?
And it is true transformation. So can you enlighten us, what is the difference between that person you are now to the person you were before?
Okay, without sounding arrogant, the person I was a victim. I was very much a why me sort of character. And going back to the word that I picked at the very beginning, superhero, this me, I've gone from victim to hero, if you like. And that's not me being arrogant or anything like that. I realized quite early on in this journey, this part of my journey, that actually I, as are you all, are my own superhero, period. If I can't save my own life, then I'm doing not only myself a disservice, but those I love as well. So the difference between being a victim and a hero, whatever your definition of that is one that says, try me, not why me. Every single day, obstacles and challenges crop up. For me definitely, for you all definitely, and it's how we overcome them. Stephen Covey, the guy that wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, very famously once said, we can be defined by what happens to us, or we can be defined by how we overcome it. That's me. I allowed myself to be defined what had happened to me, which in childhood was a whole different story, and the root cause, or so I thought, of all my troubles in adulthood. In recovery, I realized actually that the root cause, yeah, it happened, but you know what? It was a story I told myself about said root cause that caused all my trouble as an adult, not my childhood issues. In 2012, I became the person who decided and actively chose to be defined by how I overcame everything that went before. The childhood, the drinking, the fatness, everything, every negative word you could use to describe me, I allowed that to define me. These days, I look at those pictures and I think, I don't know that person. I know it's me, but I do not know that person anymore. There's a massive difference, Menaca, between existing in the shadows of a prison of your own making inside a mind that is yours to control, and that of living life in glorious technicolor and embracing every single day as an opportunity to get it right. Today is day one. Today I am sad. Just for today I'm sad. Just for today I'm happy. Just for today. And that sounds a bit like an addict's mantra, but actually it's a mantra that if we all adopted, regardless of our circumstances, most of the worries and the anxieties that we have, in my opinion, would fade away as sure as melting snow. There are always 2 sides to every story, every time. Every situation that we come across, every person that we meet, everything that happens for us, because nothing happens to us, everything that happens for us does so for a reason. And when we can embrace that, when we can say try me instead of why me, and move from victim to hero, and I'm talking about within our own lives here, yeah, you know, we see a massive difference. It's massive to not be existing anymore but living in glorious technicolor. I can't be, unless you've experienced it, I can't even tell you the difference, but it's enough to keep me sober.
Thank you, Sue. I totally agree with you, because I speak about being as a victim, being a survivor, just going through life as, trying to go through life, and then being the superhero or the, genius. But each one of us, right? There's a
we are what we think we are. It's as simple as that. I was a drunk. I used to say things like, of course I've got a drink problem. I've got 2 hands, 1 mouth. That's one hell of a problem. I would rather people laugh with me than at me. So I took it to them. If I'm saying it, then therefore you can't say it, because I'm owning my ugly, if you like, and when we can do that, it's okay. But when we do it to a degree that I did, actually, you don't really mean what you're saying. You don't want to be fat, ugly, drunk, but you've got no clue. You're so far down that rabbit hole that you can't dig yourself out. And it all boils down to not having the guts to ask other people for help, because we don't like to be seen to be vulnerable, lacking in some way, God forbid a failure. The stories we tell ourselves are so powerful.
Thank you so much. I think it's Henry Ford who said, if you think you can do it, you're right. If you think you cannot do, you're also right.
Also right, so, yeah. What we focus on expands. People talk about socially distancing now. Do you know what? In 2012, pre the new me, in 2012, my genes had socially distanced that much I couldn't even get them on. It wasn't happening. What we focus on expands, and that I went from the size that I am now to almost 17 stone. Bonkers.
Yes.
It's mad.
Yeah, thank you so much, because what we focus expands, but what we resist also persists. So vulnerability, as you said, is something as human beings we tend to resist a lot, and the more we resist, the more it stays. So,
absolutely, I love that. Yes, that's absolutely spot on.
So if you could live your life over again, could you indeed, or would you do things differently?
Do you know what? There would have been a time very early on in my recovery that, in fact, I did actively state that, do you know what? If I had my time over again, I would do this differently. I would do that differently. I wouldn't blame them. I wouldn't. And when I started to I went very deep inside in terms of brain dumping, as I call it, writing and getting things out of my head to make sense and get clarity. And actually, the first blog that I ever wrote ended up with, the blog was entitled, "What the hell have I got to be grateful for?" if I remember rightly. And I wrote that around about 2016, so 4 years ago. So 4 years in, so halfway point from then to now. What the hell have I got to be grateful for? And the last, and I'm paraphrasing my own self here, but the last paragraph went along the lines of, would I change anything? No. What the hell have I got to be grateful for today? All the jobs that I loved and lost, all the jobs that I hated and stayed in, all the tears that I cried, all the people that left me, all those that I left who I should have stayed with. Everything that had ever happened to me has ever happened to me up to that point 4 years ago and up to this point right now. Every single thing that has ever happened for me has served to make me the person that I am today, right this moment in time. And you know what, Menaca? The person pre-2012, I was never proud of that person. Never. I didn't, in my head at least, I didn't have just cause to be proud. How could I be proud of somebody who was that fat, that stupid, that drunk? Nah. This person, whether you like me or loathe me, I actually don't give a damn. No offense intended. Because this person, I'm damn well proud of. And more than anything these days, I love the person that I have become. But you know what? As you well know, one of my strap lines is empowering you to have the courage to be who you really are. And therein lies the crux of this particular matter. I am proud that I have finally found the courage to be who I really am. And, you know, my old man, my husband, always says things like, you never use 3 words when 500 will do. If we're having a discussion in the house. But I'm so passionate about helping people understand these days that we, all of us, are in control of the life that is ours to live. It's not our partners, it's not our children, it's not our parents, our siblings, our peers. No, don't matter if you're male or female. If you have an addiction of any description, you're coming at your life from a place of fear. And my question to you all would be, what is it that you are so scared of that you have to medicate? I thought I knew what it was. I didn't realize that I was feeding myself a load of rubbish. Life is a one-time offer. I am proud of this person. I'm prouder of her now than I ever have been. And I'm never, ever going to let her go, ever, because I value her. And more importantly, I now understand that those who matter to me, those who love me, those who've always loved me, value me as well. Didn't believe it. Suffered massively from the imposter syndrome. No. Would I do it all again? Absolutely. If I could be guaranteed the same result, that suddenly I'd wake up and smell the coffee and not the Chardonnay, and make up for lost time. I think Louise Hay was the one who said, today is the day to make the rest of your life the best of your life. I adopted that stance very early on in this recovery. And like I said previously, I've had a lot of massive peaks and troughs, ups and downs over the last 8 years, and there will be more to come in the very near future. But every day is a blessing.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sue. No wonder we are, close friends, because I have had my own part of failures and I have a lot of faults. And I always tell, thank you so much for all those people who tolerated me, supported me, applauded me, and gave me a hand. But even a bigger thank you to those who left, who hurted me, who put me down. Because if they didn't do what they did, I wouldn't be here who I am today.
What I now know for a fact is that other people's opinions are just that. Yeah. They're not facts. And even if they think they're facts, then I call them out and I say, is that true? Is that real? How can you? And I have to say, I've stole that from Byron Katie. Is that true? It's one of the most powerful phrases you can use with somebody else who has a negative opinion or is trying to be mean to you or whatever, or get a rise out of you. Is that true? Because you know what? 99.9% of the time, it's not. The opinions of other people, they're nice. Oh, your hair looks nice. Or you've lost some weight. That's nice. Everything else, time out. Keep it to yourself. I don't want to know. I don't want to know, not because I don't want to know. It's because, unless it's based in fact, that's your story. And it says nothing about me or you or anybody else.
I was reading it the other day where somewhere it was written, before you think before you tell. Basically, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it going to be impactful, to be in a positive way? Otherwise, just don't bother telling.
Yeah, it comes down to, I think it was one of my grandmothers said to me, I remember very early on when I was a child, if it comes down to being kind or right, Susan, be kind every time, because in the end, you'll be right anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, she was right. The clue's in the word, humankind.
Yep.
We have a word to describe us, humankind, human being. The trouble is, most of us human beings spend most time being what they think other people want us to be, that we forget along the way to be kind to ourselves. Self-care, in all of this, my self-care was never even on my list. Until 2012, my self-care for myself, if I had a to-do list, I was not even on it. Never on it. I've got 3 kids, I've got to do this, got to do that, got to get to work, got to do rush. You're a long time dead. And having looked the Grim Reaper in the eye once, he's an ugly person. I don't want to look him in the eye anytime soon. So I'm going to take Louise Hay's advice and just whatever this life brings me from this point on, or you guys, just take it and run with it, because everything's temporary, even life itself. This second, that's our life. Nothing else is guaranteed. Nothing. And when you grasp that little chestnut, everything else seems to fall into place. And being kind to ourselves and loving ourselves enough to say I'm proud of this person is sanity, not vanity, male or female, because guys are really poor at looking after themselves or saying things like I love myself. Why would anybody on God's green earth say I love myself? How selfish is that? How arrogant? No, It's sanity, not vanity. If you want to live a happy, healthy life that is both meaningful and, when you do finally shuffle off, leaves a legacy that people will want to remember you for.
So true. I mean, people who I coach know, I always tell this: self-care is not selfish. It is a must. It's not only a luxury list. It's a mandatory.
Yeah.
And like you said, after I joined the party a bit late, I only started this journey in 2016 rather, later. But, you know, it has been a transformational journey for me. I love Louise Hay. And actually on my mirror, if people who have come to my house, it's written, I love myself. So, you know, I love what Louise Hay says. I'm sure everybody's eagerly waiting to hear from you. So without taking more time, can I ask you to give one piece of advice, what you would give for people who are struggling with any form of addiction, let alone alcoholism?
Okay. In all honesty, and having been there and being so far down the rabbit hole that I've not been able to see anything but darkness, having the courage to, number one, recognize that you have an issue is massive. Number two, allowing those close to you to see that is vital. We fear that people are going to judge us for being lacking in some way, not enough. But in all honesty, for anybody who is struggling, as difficult as it might seem, two things. Asking for help is the bravest thing you will ever do, because the fear that stops us from asking for help is no more than a smokescreen, because in order to ask for help means we've got to be uncomfortable. And when we're uncomfortable, our mind goes into free fall and tries to keep us safe. And therefore the inner critic makes us shut up. Pushing through that fear barrier and asking for help is not only brave, but it will ultimately lead us to understanding that on the other side of fear, there is and there can be only growth. We can look at life through a lens of fear or a lens of love. And if we love ourselves enough to understand that those around us love us, but are worried, very worried about us, we can let them in. We hit rock bottom. I think it was J.K. Rowling that said, when my life hit rock bottom, I built it from the ground up. That's exactly what happened to me for different reasons. Had I had the courage, not to be myself even, but had I had the courage and the faith to trust those I loved, who I knew loved me, and actually admitted, I know I've got a problem. Can you help me? We may well never be having this conversation. But you know what? I'm glad that we are, because these days I can help other people to understand that the only thing that stops us from doing the things that we say we want to do is us. In order to ask for help, all of us that have an it live inside a very carefully crafted comfort zone, the facade that we hide behind, because we don't want anybody to know that we are all the above, or whatever our own it is. We don't want anybody to know. The truth is, most people do. And we won't stick our head above the parapet of said comfort zone because we're frightened what other people will say, do, or think. So if we revert that back full circle to what I just said about the opinions of other people, it's important to remember that it's not easy to remember that when you're gripped in the powers of addiction. Addiction of any sort is a horrible, horrible place to be. The easier way to snap out of an addictive situation is to address the situation before it takes hold to a point of chemical dependency. Now, depending on what the addiction is, there may not actually be a chemical dependency, but the behavioural patterns are the same. The chains of addiction habit are too weak to be broken. They're too weak to lose before they become too strong. The chains of habit can't be broken. We don't want to break them until the effects of it are too strong. We can't do it until if we're self-aware enough to understand that we've got a problem that's evolving, that's the better time to ask for help. But actually, any time, at any given point, in any day, any second, is the time to ask for help if you are down, depressed, anxious, struggling, broke, drunk, drugged up, whatever your it is. Asking for help comes with no shame. And the only thing that can come out of it is happiness. But we have to believe that. We have to want to do it. And for those of us who struggle, we have to find a why that is bigger than our need for whatever it is that keeps us down, drunk, depressed, etc. We all of us have shoulds. I should do this. I should have stopped drinking at least 5 years before I was admitted to hospital. My should had become a must at least 2 years before I was admitted to hospital. When I combined my should and my must, I still didn't have a big enough why. And the reason I'm telling you that is I found that why. Day my consultant told me I was still dying. He left. I was crying. The younger of our 3 children walked in through the door, asked me why I was crying. Dad was crying too. Seen me cry before, not Dad. And he had to tell her that her mother was still dying. In that split second, she let out the most guttural scream I've ever known. She looked at me, held my gaze. It seemed like forever. It was probably only a few seconds, but that was another paradigm shift within a very short space of time. She looked at me while screaming with a look that said everything. She hated me. She was angry. She was fearful, scared. But in her eyes, more than anything, I saw the love in her eyes for me. Number one, at a time when I didn't even like myself, let alone love myself. Number two, that I'd always searched for in the eyes of my own mother and never consciously remember seeing. In that second paradigm shift, my why became so big that I knew number one, I'd made a big mistake, but I knew that I was more than enough just the way I was. Because when the day I left hospital, I didn't look like this. I was still 7.5 stone heavier, still had a long way to go. When we believe in ourselves, have the courage to be who we really are brave enough to ask for help, all of that boils down to self-belief. One of the biggest things I know for sure these days is our self-belief. When we have a firm sense of self-belief, it gives us the wings to fly and the courage to fall, safe in the knowledge that when we hit rock bottom, we can get straight back up and try again, regardless of what anybody else thinks.
Thank you so much, Sue. And I can't believe, you said those words, because, you have written in my book, so you know that in my book, the subtitle is Healing My Wounds, Finding My Wings. And it is so true. I cannot agree more when you said it is the wings are within us. We have to just look a bit closer to find it.
Everything's within us. Everything, as I do, the work that I do, everything begins and ends with you. Here, of course, and in here.
It does. So before I ask other people to ask questions and hand it over, one last question. How has your experience with Soul Strings been? And also any feedback or suggestions you would give us, how we can take it forward, please.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that one. Do you know what? It's been awesome. I think Zoom's a great platform, and I think it's been really well managed. It's been nice to see people's faces sort of popping up in different formats and combinations. And no, it's been seamless. Can't fault it at all. And I can see why people keep coming back. It's been a great experience, and giving voice to anybody who has stories to share that will help others in some way, it can only ever be a good thing. So I would like to, congratulations. It's been great.
Thank you so much, Sue. I loved having you. I loved having you. You're welcome. I loved having you. I'm sure all the participants loved hearing from you as well. Thank you so much. Before I hand it over to Kirby to give the vote of thanks, I just want to introduce our next topic, and the next speaker is Krishnath, who is a psychologist. And he's going to be speaking about how to be you, really, to be powerfully you. So I hope to see all of you soon here, next time, next week, in the same place, same way, being you, being free, and being assertive. It's all about communication. Excellent. How you can be yourself. So I'm really hoping to see all of you here back here. I am just to also let people who are listening on Facebook on live to let you know, after the vote of thanks, after a few words from me, we will be coming off live just to make sure the privacy is maintained when people ask questions. Over to you, Kirbai.
Yes. Talking to myself. That was a very enlightening talk. I wouldn't say talk, sharing, Sue. It was very heartfelt, and you spoke from your heart, and we really appreciate what you shared on this platform.
Thank you.
So as a man thinks, so he is. And you kind of said it all in a very beautiful way, that it all starts from you.
Yes.
And I want to appreciate you on behalf of Soul Strings today and say you made the right choice, and you recognized and you asked for help. And I believe that all of us have to take that first step of saying, hey, I'm damn.
Yeah.
I'm damn. And thank you so much for, your sense of humor. Kind of puts everybody at ease, and we want to come together and just smile with you and laugh and reflect on our own mistakes, actually.
Yeah. There are no such thing as mistakes, only lessons to be learned.
That's right. That's right. Our testing becomes our testimony and help to others. And it's great. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
For being a friend of Soul Strings. We hope to see you here. And we want to bless you for your journey and how you help others in reaching out with your story. Bless you.
Thank you for that, Kirbai. Thank you so much for supporting as ever, for everyone who is listening in Facebook. Thank you so much for all the participants. Please hang on there, and Sue will be answering all your questions in private soon. For people who are watching in Facebook, hopefully you will have a great weekend. I know IPL has started in India. Please go and enjoy that for people who are from that region. And until I see you next week, same time, same place, be happy, keep safe, and keep smiling.